Welcome to Spectrum News at 12. I am Uyai Anyekan, coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiako, and let's take a look at the headlines. Federal government considers fresh measures to end terrorism. Federal government takes 3,657 civil servants before ICPC over IPPIS. Plus, Sri Lankan troops tear down protest camp outside President's office. Details of the stories and more in a moment. First on our news today is a report that President Muhammadu Buhari has reacted to the demise of the father of Senator Ali Ndume, Alhaji Buba Ndume. In a condolence message signed by his spokesman Garba Shehu, President Buhari described the late Ndume as a gentleman and a great father who was an awesome inspiration to his children. In a message to Senator Ndume, Buhari said that he was profoundly touched by the death of the senator's father and prayed that Allah rewards his noble deeds with paradise. Recall that Senator Ndume announced the demise of his father on Tuesday, saying his late father, an accomplished community leader, was buried that day in Maiduguri, the Borno state capital. Away from that, an outright ban on the use of motorcycles, popularly called Okada, and the suspension of mining are parts of fresh measures being considered by the federal government to curtail terrorism. The National Security Council rose from a meeting at the Presidential Villa in Abuja with a resolution that a nationwide ban on motorcycle operations will cripple the movements of terrorists. The council said the suspension of mining will cut off funding sources for terror activities. Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami dropped the hints in a chat with reporters after the council meeting chaired by President Muhammadu Buhari. According to Malami, terrorists have moved from the conventional ways of funding the activities to mining and ransom taking, making it necessary for the government to act. In the meantime, the federal government has said at least 3,657 civil servants had been taken before the Independent and Corrupt Practices and Related Offences Commission (ICPC) for their failure to get verified on the Integrated Personnel Payroll Information Systems (IPPIS). The head of the Civil Service of the Federation, HOCSF, Dr. Folashade Yemi Hassan, announced this when she appeared on the weekly ministerial briefing organized by the Presidential Communications team at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Yemi Hassan, who was accompanied by other senior officials of the Federal Civil Service, also said 61,446 civil servants in the core ministries, departments and agencies, MDAs, have been verified, noting that another 1,618 applicants were found to have used illegal or fake letters, while 874 officers have been suspended from the IPPIS platform. She added that about 180 million naira was being saved monthly and about 2 billion naira annually from the implementation of the IPPIS.
Carried out a verification audit of all employment letters of everybody that is in service, and they wanted to compare the names on the employment letters with what they had in their own system. And they discovered that 3,657 workers did not present themselves for verification. And so we referred all the 3,065 workers to the ICPC and also stopped their salaries. We went to the 6 geopolitical zones to ensure that we were able to capture everybody, and as at today, we have verified 61,446 officers in the core MDAs. And in the course of their work, they detected a total of 1,618 officers whose letters of employment were either fake or illegal.
Meanwhile, federal government has projected to spend 6.7 trillion naira on petrol subsidy payments in 2023. Speaking at the presentation of the 2023 to 2035 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper in Abuja, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said subsidy payments projection is based on two prevailing scenarios: business as usual or reform. Ahmed explained that scenario one, the business as usual, is assuming that the subsidy on petrol, which is estimated at 6.72 trillion naira for the full year 2023, will remain and be fully provided for. While scenario two, the reform scenario, assumes that petrol subsidy will remain up to mid-2023 based on the 18-month extension announced early 2021, in which case only 3.36 trillion naira will be provided for. She, however, said both scenarios have implications for net accretion to the Federation account and projected deficit levels, noting that the federal government has recorded a 2 trillion naira budget deficit between January and April of 2022. According to the minister, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company NNPC Limited, which has funded the fuel subsidy until June, will henceforth leave that responsibility to the Federation, an action she said will create a strain. In another development, the Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Mohammed Bello, has said that 21.029 billion naira is needed to complete the rehabilitation of the National Assembly complex. Bello, who disclosed this during an oversight tour of some projects by the Senate Committee on FCT, noted no major rehabilitation work had been carried out on the building over the years. He listed other priority projects acted upon by the administration to include rehabilitation of Federal Secretariat Complex, construction of Southern Park, provision of engineering infrastructure for Wuse District, rehabilitation and expansion of Outer Southern Expressway Villa Roundabout, and completion of B6, B12, and Circle Road in Central Area, Abuja.
In 2023, the same attempt was made to sell these power plants, and in the investigation conducted during the 2021 resolved that these power plants are not to be sold.
If federal government wants to do anything with its assets, that is fine, but they should do it with regard to their own shareholding.
We move now to the legislature, where the House of Representatives has directed the Bureau of Public Enterprise (BPE) and the Niger Delta Power Holding Company (NDPHC) to immediately halt the planned sale of 5 power plants belonging to 3 tiers of government. The House said the sales did not follow due process. Adopting a motion of urgent public importance sponsored by the chairman of the House Committee on Power, Magaji Dao, the House asked BPES Director General Alex Okor to desist from any act aimed at felicitating the sales of the 5 power plants until such sales are duly authorized by the shareholders at a formal meeting, as stipulated in the Companies and Allied Matters Act, CAMA 2020. Leading a debate on the motion, Dow said the National Council on Privatization and Board of Directors of the NDPHC, in collaboration with the BPE, had resolved to sell the 5 power plants located in Calabar, Cross River State, Ihobo in Edo State, Olorunshogo in Ogun State, Omotosho in Ondo State, and Geregu in Kogi State. According to him, the plants were constructed under the National Integrated Power Project, NIPP, to ensure the stability of Nigeria's power sector. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives is to delay the second reading of controversial National Water Resources Bill 2020 till September, when the National Assembly resumes from its annual 2-month recess. The chairman of the House Committee on Water Resources, Sada Soli, made this known at the that the break will allow members to scrutinize the proposals in the legislation and note their observations. Recall that the bill had re-emerged on the floor of the House of Representatives on the 29th of June 2022 amidst suspicions from members. The leadership, however, assured the lawmakers that the new version of the legislation would capture all the interest of
way before this matter comes up for second reading, every single member is given a copy to digest, to read, to consult wide. We cannot play the ostrich and knowing that the bill that almost threw this country up in flames is coming up again and just say, let members.
That the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, will today arraign a former Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, and 3 others on charges of stealing and criminal breach of trust to the tune of 109.4 billion naira. The spokesperson for the EFCC, Wilson Wajiren, in a statement said Idris will be arraigned with Godfrey Akindele, Mohammed Usman and Gezewa Commodity Market and Exchange Limited before Justice Adeyemi Ajayi of the Federal Capital Territory High Court, Abuja, on 14 counts of money laundering and corruption. Recall that Idris was arrested by the EFCC on the 16th of May. He was suspended 2 days later and replaced on the 22nd of May. To persecute the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, over alleged perjury, delivering a rule in an ex parte application. Justice Inyako granted the leave argued by the group, Incorporated Trustees of Center for Reform and Public Advocacy, CRPA, through its lawyer Ugo Nwofo, who alleged refusal of the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, to arrest and prosecute the former Lagos State Governor for supplying false information on oath in respect of his educational qualifications. While moving the application, the applicants informed the court that it is predicated on the rule of the Federal High Court to first obtain permission from the courts before proceeding with the suit, seeking an order to compel the police chief to carry out his constitutional duties. Justice Eko held that the ex parte application was meritorious and granted it. He subsequently fixed November 1st for a hearing of the substantive suit. In another development, the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, has pegged the deadline for the 2022 admissions for December 31st, 2022. This is as the board also stated that it would no longer accept A-level results by the National Business and Technical Education Board, NABTEB, for direct entry admissions. These were disclosed during the 2022 policy meeting organized by the board in Abuja. The JAM registrar, Professor Aishak Oloyede, said the Minister of Education has approved 140 as the minimum benchmark for admissions into the universities. Oloyede noted Adebayo Eyumofe, an Ekiti State indigene who sat for his examination in Abuja, scored 362 marks, the highest mark in the 2022 Unified Tertiary Matriculation examinations.
Proposed by the institution and approved by the policy meeting. The totality of all scores being used for ranking the candidates shall be taken into account in determining the percentage of minimum score.
What you are doing is worth doing badly, because whatever is worth doing should be done. And once something is worth doing, whether you do it well or you do it badly, you are under obligation to do it.
Sadio Mane is more of a national symbol for the Senegalese, whom he led to their first African Cup of Nations crown in February. Recall that Mane was a key figure in the Senegal team that defeated Salah, captained Egypt. Senegal tactician Aliou Cissé was crowned a coach of the year.
Wow, chants in the auditorium. Yeah. Wonderful atmosphere, you know.
Mane.
Wow, chants in the auditorium.
Congratulations.
In the meantime, the rising price of basic food is reportedly worsening South Africa's food security crisis, which could increase social instability and spark a repeat of the devastating July unrest. Food Forward South Africa, an organization addressing hunger in poor communities, says every month 30 million people in the country are experiencing food insecurity, and in the Eastern Cape, 12 children died of starvation. Food Forward South Africa Managing Director Andy Doom said the main concerns is the opportunistic crime and riots that ruled last month, mainly driven by rising transport and food prices. On the foreign scene, a congressional inquiry has heard that former U.S. President Donald Trump watched last year's Capitol riot on TV at the White House, ignoring his children and aides who begged him to rebuke the mob. On Thursday night, the House of Representatives Select Committee used its 8th hearing of the summer to draw a timeline of Trump's activities over 187 minutes on the 6th of January 2021 as a mob of his supporters raided Congress. The panel is seeking to build a case that Mr. Trump. The hearing was told that former President Trump had watched coverage of the riot on Fox News in the private dining room at the White House for more than 2.5 hours. One of the two Republicans on the Democratic-led committee, Adam Kinzinger, said Trump did not place a single call to law enforcement or national security staff. Reports say Trump, who has been hinting he may run again for president in 2024, has dismissed the inquiry as a kangaroo court designed to distract Americans from the disaster of democratic governance. In the meantime, Sri Lanka's police and military troops forcibly removed anti-government protesters camped outside the presidential office in Colombo in a pre-dawn raid today on the order of the country's new president. Recall that protesters have been camped outside the presidential office for months, demanding the resignation of former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled the country in the early hours of July 30th, pulling down protest tents and arresting demonstrators outside the presidential offices at Gele, faced 2 days after the crisis-hit country saw in a new leader. Police spokesperson SSP Nihal Taldua has confirmed 9 men were arrested and will appear in court later. Still to come in the news. Super Falcons and Barcelona striker Asisat Oshola claims record 5th CAF Award. Do stay with us.
They are all from
Thanks for staying tuned. On our business news, amid a projection by the federal government to spend a whopping sum of 6.7 trillion naira on fuel subsidy next year and a major shortfall in the government oil revenue this year, economic and energy experts have predicted tougher days ahead for the economy, states and Nigerians. Recall that the Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, had released the 4-month fiscal report of the economy during a public consultation on the 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework (FSP). Economists and petroleum experts projected that Nigerian state governments and the economy would experience tougher days ahead, going by the numbers. According to overview of 2022 fiscal outcomes and update on 2022 Federation revenue performance presented by the Minister of Finance, the gross oil and gas Federation revenue for the first 4 months of 2022 failed to meet the expected target, falling from 3.12 trillion naira to 1.23 trillion naira, representing a 39% performance. Ahmed said the subsidy projection was based on business as usual or reform scenarios, noting that the first scenario assumed that subsidy would be retained and fully provided for. Still in business, Director General World Trade Organization WTO Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has advised the federal government to ensure the conditions spelt out during the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference that took place in Geneva, Switzerland, on access to fisheries funds are met. The WTO DG gave this advice during a visit to the Minister of State, Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment, Mariam Khatun, in Abuja, emphasizing the need for the country to benefit from WTO fisheries funding. Okonjo-Iweala's visit came barely a month after the WTO's Council of Ministers meeting, which was held in Geneva between June 12 and June 17, with a major focus on improving trade, health, food security, and economic reforms, which aim at building economic resilience globally. She explained that fisheries funding mechanism is envisioned to support developing and least developed countries in implementing a prospective agreement to curb harmful fisheries subsidies. In health, the federal government is set to begin the implementation of the National Surgical Obstetric Anesthesia and Nursing Plan, NSO-ANP, 2019 through 2023. The head coordinating unit Department of Hospital Services, Ministry of Health, Dr. Obiajulu Ubo, disclosed this while presenting the NSO-ANP working document to the Acting Chief Medical Director, National Hospital Abuja, Dr. Aisha Umar. Ubo said that the plan was developed in line with a World Health Assembly resolution of 2015 that states that surgical, obstetric, anesthesia, and nursing care are important components of universal health coverage, UHC. She added that the 5-year plan, which aims to strengthen existing infrastructure and equipment, achieve access to surgical care for both adults and children by the year 2023, and increase the middle-level workforce, was inaugurated in May of 2019, but could not kick off due to the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions.
Surgical, obstetrics, anesthesia, and nursing care, to spread it across all levels of the government. So to make it afford, just like the mandate of the ministry, to make healthcare accessible, affordable to the masses. We are just disseminating the policy, the plan at this stage. So the plan is at the level of the implementation. It will be reviewed and then we can give you our success stories. Yeah.
Still in health, the Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment Ambassador Mariam Katagom has urged Nigerian pharmaceutical companies to utilize the licensing who made the call on at the 9th African Day of Standardization 2022 Symposium, organized by the Standard Organization of Nigeria in Lagos, explained that following WHO's declaration of the coronavirus as a global public health emergency and the inability of some countries to get the COVID-19 vaccine, Some countries have issued compulsory licenses to enable them to start manufacturing vaccines for the next 5 years. According to her, both the public and private pharmaceutical companies should take advantage of the opportunity to ensure that Nigeria starts production of vaccines not only for COVID-19 but for other infectious diseases in case of future pandemics. The minister also called on Africa and Africans to pay attention to promoting homemade solutions to some of the challenges confronting the continent. In sports, the Super Falcons have turned their attention to a third-place finish as they face Zambia for the consolatory bronze medals at the Complex Mohammed V in Casablanca today, after seeing their chances of winning the Women's Africa Cup of Nations for the 10th time quenched by host Morocco. The Falcons will hope to make it 3 out of 3 when they face the Cooper Queens in Casablanca, having dominated their previous meetings, winning 6-0 in their first clash at the 2014 edition before defeating the Queens 4-0 in Ghana in 2018 on their way to a 9th title. This is only the 3rd time since the women's tournament began in 1998 that Nigeria will play in a third-place match, winning one and losing the other. Recall that despite being reduced to 9 players following the sending off of Rasheedat Ajibade and Halimatu Ayinde, Falcons held Morocco and forced the game into a penalty shootout. In the meantime, Super Falcons and Barcelona striker Sisat Oshoala has beaten Zambia's Grace Chanda and Ajara Nakot Njoya of Cameroon to claim the CAF Women's Player of the Year award for a record 5th time, while Senegalese superstar Sadio retained his men's title at the award ceremony held in Rabat, Morocco. Oshoala is now the sole record holder for the most award wins, thus stamping her authority on the continent. After receiving her record-breaking award, an elated Oshoala dedicated the award to her teammates. Recall that Oshoala was the only Nigerian nominee at the 2022 CAF Awards after Falcons coach Van de Waldrum, who was originally nominated for Coach of the Year, was dropped from the final shortlist along with Monday Gift and Super Eagles duo Moses Simon and Akinkumi Amor.
As a whole as well. I got 5 today. 5.
In entertainment, the 7th season of one of the biggest reality TV shows in Nigeria, Big Brother Naija, is set to premiere on Saturday, July 24th, 2022. Reports say just like the previous season, the BB Naija Season 7 launch will hold for 2 days, July 23rd and 24th, 2022. Introducing the housemates, media personality Ebuka Obi-Uchendu also returns as the host of the show. Still in entertainment, with the feat of releasing her 10th album entitled Imisi, inspirational singer and songwriter Sola Alison recently staged an electrifying performance for a graceful journey. Alison, who burst into the music scene in 2003 with her hit album Eji Owuru, spoke on her evolution. With a total of 10 albums in 20 years to her credit, Alison, who burst into the music scene in 2003 with her hit album Eji Owuru, spoke on her evolution, saying, "The 10th album is not really different from the usual theme of hope, encouragement, worship of the Almighty, and love." And that's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News at 12. I am Uyai Anieka, and thanks for watching, and do enjoy the rest of your day.